If you have been diagnosed with issues like gastritis, IBS, or GERD, then you've probably thought about changing your diet. And while there are a ton of diets out there that may be suitable at easing your symptoms, there are some that may look healthy but can actually exacerbate some of the symptoms and ultimately have you feeling a lot worse. Okay, so when you have gut issues like the ones I've mentioned, you're normally told to avoid your trigger foods or to find your trigger foods. We are told this in order to lessen the symptoms and just to use that time to observe what else is affecting us. Personally, when I work with a client and just within myself, I like to do diet changes gradually. I don't like to do them all at once because it could be that some of the foods that they think isn't helping them could be okay, or some of the foods that they think are helping them could be what is hindering them the most. And also, if we remove everything from our everyday diet, we will never fully know what is really hindering us. We can guess and say that it's dairy, we can guess and say that it's gluten. This is why a gradual elimination diet is often recommended and is supervised by a doctor or a dietitian. So what is an elimination diet? The elimination diet is a way that you can identify food sensitivities or food intolerances by removing specific foods or food groups out of your diet and then reintroducing them one at a time and monitoring that whole process for reactions or symptoms. The goal of the elimination diet is to determine which foods are causing things like fatigue, headaches, gut issues, digestive issues, and this involves several stages. Here are the 5 stages of the elimination diet. Stage number 1 is preparation. Before starting the elimination diet, it's important to have some type of journal or a food diary to track anything that you're eating and any symptoms that you're feeling. This will help you identify the potential trigger foods. Now, the preparation period usually takes about a week or so. Some people do it a little bit different, but a week for me seemed to be working just fine because it gave me time to really sit down and try to figure out what was working and what wasn't working for me. It was then that I found that tomatoes and broccoli, certain cruciferous vegetables, weren't really digesting very well in my stomach. I felt a lot of burping and a lot of discomfort, so I mentally took that down, wrote it down, and just that observation helped me a lot, especially when I went into the doctor and I explained to him what was going on in my symptoms. I also explained to him the types of foods that were really creating those symptoms. Stage number 2 of the elimination diet is elimination. It's kind of self-explanatory, but during this phase, you eliminate specific foods or food groups that you think may be causing these sensitivities. The common culprits are usually dairy, gluten, soy, eggs, nuts, shellfish, and like I mentioned earlier, for me, it was certain nightshade vegetables. Nightshade vegetables are usually things like onions, tomatoes, eggplants, stuff like that. And pretty much what the elimination stage covers is you need to strictly avoid these foods for a certain amount of time. Usually this can be from 2 to 4 weeks, just to see how the changes have been made in your body. So for a lot of people who are lactose intolerant or have a sensitivity to gluten or dairy, what they will notice is they will notice that their bloating slowly goes away. They will notice that they can eat larger meals. They will notice that maybe if they had any type of bacterial infection or yeast infection, that will usually go down, because let's say the foods like dairy and gluten were probably hindering you and were not allowing you to fully heal or just to jumpstart your journey. And while there are many common culprits, like I mentioned earlier, there are some very rare ones. It depends. It's a person to person type of basis. For some people, coffee would really be a big one. For some people, it won't. For some people, chocolate might be too acidic for them, so they might have to find an alternative just for the moment. Maybe carob would be an alternative to chocolate. Green tea would be an alternative to coffee. So in the elimination period, you also want to find certain things that you can replace the foods that you can no longer eat for that period of time, and seeing how you react to those foods, because it could be that you could permanently replace those foods and never really have to deal with the repercussions of the symptoms. Also, the elimination stage, I feel like, takes a lot of patience, because it's this area in the whole elimination diet that takes the most work. Because if you have a set schedule on what you're eating every single day and just set foods that you're eating every single day and you have to completely let go of them, then it can be a little bit difficult. So that's why I try to do things gradually. So if we are taking out gluten and dairy, maybe we'll do gluten 1 week, then we'll do dairy the next week. However, we wouldn't remove gluten 1 week, then reintroduce it the next week. We would keep that gluten off for a couple weeks probably before we try to reintroduce it with everything else. Same thing as when you are reintroducing the foods. When you're reintroducing them, you don't want to reintroduce them all at once because again, you won't be able to spot them. There is a way of an elimination diet with supplements or with anything else that you're doing in your life that you can try. It's a similar model where you pretty much slowly eliminate the habits, or you slowly eliminate the foods or whatever it may be, or the supplements or whatever it may be, and then slowly reintroducing them, and then going on a week by week basis and seeing which ones are actually working and which ones aren't. I have gotten a lot of clients in the past who have tried and come with me with a ton of supplements they have been taking for a long time. They feel like they've done the work for the most part in that sense, but they just have not seen much improvement. And they just keep buying the supplements over and over again. And it could be that it's just for some supplements, they're just not working for them. Also, you have to keep in mind that your body does get used to what you give it to them, right? Both good and bad things. So if you're giving your body the same supplement over and over again, it could be that it absorbs it, but at some point it just becomes used to the intake of that supplement. And that's why it's good to not be taking that supplement all of the time, but just in small increments and seeing the benefits come in, and then just feeding the rest of your stomach, feeding the rest of your system with good foods, right? No longer supplements. And you save a lot of money through that. And like I said, this model can be very beneficial for a lot of people, especially if you are trying to do things little by little and not overwhelm your system and not overwhelm yourself. Before we continue with the video, I wanted to share with you an amazing set of news that I have been holding in for quite a while. I have been working on a year-long project, which is my herbal tea company. This company is created to help out modern ailments like acid reflux and bloating and indigestion. I made sure to have amazing ingredients, 100% organic. And yeah, if you guys want to check it out, I will be leaving the link down in the description below. Thank you. Stage 3 is reintroduction. After the elimination phase, you want to slowly and gradually reintroduce the food, similar to what I talked about earlier. Ideally, you would want to wait a week to reintroduce a new food group or a new food. This allows you to sort of monitor your body's response to that food once again. And I would also do it in small amounts. And I would do it in also different ways. Here's an example. I stopped eating tomatoes for a very long time because I felt that they really were exacerbating a lot of my symptoms. So what I did is I completely stopped, having any type of tomato. I just did it cold turkey when I should have done it a little bit more gradually. However, I learned my lesson, and when I reintroduced it in very small amounts. And I still do. I still have it in very small amounts because my body's not fully used to it yet. But what I did notice was eating raw tomatoes without the inside, without the seeds, and without the skin, just having that middle ground, like that middle piece of the tomato, seemed okay with me, and it seemed like it was something that I was able to digest. So then every time that I would try to have tomato, I would notice that what worked best for me was in like salsas, right? For salsas, it was just pretty much the skin and the layer in between and not the seeds. That really helped me out, and that really made me realize that maybe the seeds were one of the issues to me not being able to break down the tomato. This was a way for me to be able to consume tomatoes once again, or reintroduce tomatoes once again, little by little. I do have to note, however, that during this time, I was also really working on resetting my stomach lining, restoring that stomach lining, getting it ready for me to reintroduce those foods once again. Because if that stomach lining is not reinforced, then the problems can just come back again, and it can just be a whole issue. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go ahead and DM me on my Instagram, or you can email me, because we can definitely talk more about how you can restore your stomach lining so that you're able to reintroduce those foods faster. But I'm only going to be talking about the elimination diet for right now. So for the elimination diet, you really want to allow yourself about 3 to 7 days to reintroduce any type of food. Again, I would start in very small amounts. I would also have these foods not as soon as I wake up, because I don't want to have it on an empty stomach if my stomach's not really prepped or ready yet. I would probably have it sometime in the middle of the day and see how I feel. Stage number 4 is assessment. Similar to stage number 1, you really want to track any type of progress that you've made, or anything that you feel like is still hindering you, anything that is still irritating you. After assessing your trigger foods and really finding what those are, then you have a couple of options. Number one, you either continue replacing the foods that are triggering you to foods that are similar, that have similar taste, that have similar flavor. The second option that you may have is to just completely stop eating these foods, or really minimizing the amount of foods that you have, of that food that you have. Option number three would probably be deciding to reset your stomach lining, restore the stomach lining, really work on that first, and then reintroducing the foods. However, if you are looking for extra support or extra ideas, I do have one-on-one clients that I take and that I work with for 3 months, and we really work on that. We really work on resetting and restoring the stomach lining, building back the mucus and the walls of the stomach in order for it to be able to take in the food and pass it down the digestive system. Our goal technically would be to eliminate these foods for a temporary amount of time, especially if they are just food triggers and food sensitivities. However, if they are food intolerances like lactose, it can be a little bit more difficult to bring that back. After the age of 8 years old, it is a lot harder for someone to be able to break down milk. And this is just something, or be able to break down milk sugars, which are in milks, which are in creamers, which are in dairy, any type of dairy. Stage 5 of the elimination diet is personalization. Once you've identified the trigger foods, you can really tailor your meals, your everyday meals, to what is working for you. Now let's go over some common questions about the elimination diet. Are there faster ways of knowing what foods you may have a sensitivity to? Yes, there are plenty of tests out there and blood work tests that you can do. This is probably a faster way to go about this. And usually you do this through your physician, your gastroenterologist. How long does the elimination phase last? Usually it lasts about 2 to 4 weeks, but it also depends on the person, and it depends on how many foods you are removing from your diet, or how many food groups you're removing, and how many you have to bring back. That usually takes some time, so 2 to 4 weeks. Can I continue taking medications or supplements during the elimination diet? It depends on what type of medication and supplements. Personally, I was taking omeprazole when I did one of my first elimination diets, and I seemed to be fine while taking it. Do I need to track my food and symptoms during the elimination diet? Yes, I would do that through a food diary, or I would also do that through your phone. If you ever happen to have any type of reaction to something, you can write it down in your notes and just kind of have that there, and it's more accessible. Okay, so that is a quick overview of what the elimination diet is, what it does, and how it is practiced. If you're looking to jumpstart your healing journey, then let's work together. I have these free 20-minute consultations that I do with people, and we talk about how I can help you, what your history with gut issues are, and any advice I may have as to what you can do to jumpstart that healing journey. I also have a complete meal plan. It's a 15-day meal plan filled with breakfast, lunches, and dinners for gastritis and acid reflux. If you want to go ahead and take a look at that. I know sometimes it can be a little hard to figure out any type of ideas for foods because your food becomes so limited whenever you have these issues. So I definitely branched out and tried to look into different types of recipes that would help people. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a little bit about what the elimination diet is, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!